On one of the hottest summer days the small American town had ever known, when the asphalt shimmered like molten glass and even the dogs retreated to the shade with tongues lolling, a lone crow named Charlie beat his tired wings slowly across the sky, his feathers sticky from sweat and his throat burning with thirst, for he had been flying since morning in search of water, passing over playgrounds where fountains stood dry, over backyards where sprinklers remained off because families tried to save water during the drought, and over parks where ponds had shrunk into cracked basins of mud. And with each beat of his wings, his hope dwindled, until his thoughts grew heavy and dark, and he muttered to himself, "If I don't find water soon, this will be the end." But just as despair threatened to consume him, a faint glimmer of glass caught his sharp eye, and there on the porch of a white-painted house sat a tall pitcher, sunlight bouncing off its rim, and at its bottom shimmered the most precious sight a thirsty bird could imagine: clear, cool water, waiting like a miracle. With a burst of hope he swooped down, landed carefully on the pitcher's rim, and thrust his beak inside, only to find, to his crushing disappointment, that the water lay far too low for him to reach, so low that even when he stretched his neck until it ached, his beak barely brushed the surface, and with a frustrated caw he pulled back, pacing the rim, looking at the water that seemed so close and yet might as well have been locked away. And for a moment his courage wavered as he considered toppling the pitcher over, but it was heavy, far too heavy for his small body to move, and a shadow of defeat whispered that he was doomed to die with salvation right before his eyes. Yet Charlie was not a crow easily broken. He had lived long enough to know that sometimes survival belonged not to the strongest but to the cleverest, and as he glanced around the porch, his eyes fell upon a scatter of small round pebbles lying by the steps. Ordinary stones no one noticed, but to Charlie they suddenly gleamed with the spark of possibility, and in that instant, a plan hatched inside his weary mind, for he thought, "If I cannot reach the water, perhaps I can make the water rise to me." And though the idea seemed foolish at first, it was all he had. So with trembling determination he hopped down, picked up one pebble in his beak, carried it back to the pitcher, and dropped it inside, where it sank with a faint plop. And to his joy the water rippled upward, just a fraction, not much, but enough to prove his idea was possible, and with renewed energy he carried another pebble, then another, until the rhythm of flight and drop became his entire world, each stone a small victory, each splash a reminder that progress, though slow, was real. And as the sun blazed down, searing his feathers and baking the wooden porch beneath him, Charlie labored on, his wings aching, his body threatening collapse, yet his spirit whispering, "One more, just one more," for he knew that giving up meant death, but persistence meant hope. And so the minutes stretched into nearly an hour as the pile of pebbles shrank, and the water level rose higher and higher, until at last, after dozens upon dozens of trips, the surface gleamed so close to the rim that Charlie, panting and trembling, leaned in once more, dipped his beak, and at last tasted the sweet, cool water that flooded his throat like life itself, each sip washing away exhaustion, each drop reviving his spirit, until he drank deeply, gratefully, and then lifted his head, spreading his wings in triumph and cawing to the skies, for he had won not through strength, but through cleverness and perseverance. Yet what Charlie did not know was that he had not been entirely alone. For through a window nearby, a young boy named Ethan had been watching silently. A boy who had been struggling all week with his summer homework, who had told himself again and again that math was too hard and that he would rather quit than face the frustration of failing problems he could not solve. But as Ethan watched the crow labor tirelessly under the merciless sun, carrying one small pebble after another without giving up, he felt something stir in his own heart, and he whispered, "If a bird can keep going and find a way, maybe I can too." And in that moment the crow's struggle became a lesson, showing the boy that obstacles are not walls meant to stop us, but puzzles waiting for creativity, patience, and effort to unlock. And so the thirsty crow not only saved his own life, but also planted in a child the seed of determination, a seed that would grow into confidence, persistence, and success, proving that the simplest actions can echo beyond our imagination. And thus the story of the thirsty crow is more than a fable of survival.